Welcome to Dad Devotionals, everyone. It's great to be here. Joining me today is an Orthodox Christian and friend of the show by the name of James Constantine. James is a multimedia marketing consultant with the Frederick News-Post. He's a graduate of York College of Pennsylvania, where he majored in history with a minor in business administration. He's been married for about four to 5 years. I want to say 5 years, actually. That's what you told me, 5 years, to his wife, Stephenie, and they have 2 young boys. And he's here to join me today to talk about his journey to the faith and how he's bringing his children up as Orthodox Christians. James, welcome to Dad Devotionals. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much.
Can you just kind of paint a picture for us about your Orthodox journey? From what I understand, you were raised in the faith, correct?
That's correct. So my father's lineage is Greek, which is naturally an Orthodox country. And so he was raised Orthodox in the Greek church. And then he married my mom, who came from a Methodist background, and she converted to Orthodoxy.
Okay.
And then within Orthodoxy, they had bounced around a little bit. When I was little, we went to an OCA church in Bethesda, Maryland, where I'm from. And then we had switched to an Antiochian Orthodox church, which is where I go now.
Okay, so what was it like, growing up in the faith? I guess you had a mom who converted, but obviously your dad, was he a convert, or did he grow up as well? I would imagine he probably grew up with it as well.
Yes, he grew up with it as well.
Okay, so what was that like growing up in the faith? Because, I'm sure your dad tried to instill a lot of things in you. What are some of the things that you carried with you to today?
And growing up in the faith was just a part of who we were. I think a lot of it had to do with our background, the Greek background.
Sure.
I feel like, when you're born Greek, you're just kind of Orthodox. That's just kind of how it is.
Right. I guess Russian, the same thing too, right?
Exactly. So, quite frankly, I think there is a difference between growing up in an Orthodox background and joining an Orthodox background in your personal life.
Sure.
Orthodoxy was it was part of who we were. We went to church every Sunday. I went to church camp at Antiochian Village for several years.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Of course, we celebrated Easter. So it was just a part of who we were.
Sure. So what was it like you ever talked about your mom, about how she grew up Methodist, and, obviously Anna and I are converts. Stephenie is a convert too, correct?
Correct.
So did she ever share with you what that was like to, basically leave what she grew up with behind? Because I think sharing that element might make it easy, because some of the guys that listen are obviously Orthodox converts as well. So what was it like for her? And, how did she come to grips with making that decision to raise you Orthodox and to convert herself?
To be quite honest, it's not really the kind of thing that we talked a lot about as family. It was one of those things where we just kind of were Orthodox. The little bit I've talked to my mom about it, my understanding is that she grew up Methodist, but I don't think that she was necessarily a regular church goer as a young adult. And so when she met my father, it was much like with my wife, quite frankly. When I met my wife and we started dating, I said, pretty quickly, I said, I'm an Orthodox Christian, and when I get married, I'm going to be married to the Orthodox Church. And I think my father said something very similar. And my mom figured, she didn't really have a strong background with her faith, and my father had, I guess, a strong background. So she just joined the Orthodox Church.
Okay, so tell us about your immediate family today. What are some of the things that you guys do to live out the faith at home?
It's hard, I will say. Life is so busy that it's very easy to put your faith in the background. But we really try and do some key things. And I think what's important really is to make it a repetition. We try to go to church every Sunday, and right now we really try to watch a service on YouTube if we can, or like one Sunday, in lieu of that, we prayed in a prayer corner. I try to make as a habit spending about 5 minutes with each child saying different prayers each night before we go to bed. And I try to be understanding that their attention span is very short, but I try to also mix it up and explain what we're talking about. Like I've tried to include some of the hymns. I try to explain what we're saying and why we're saying it.
What hymns do you focus on? Because I think that'd be helpful for guys to hear.
Quite frankly, Dave, I couldn't. I don't have memorization. I wish I had that prepared with me.
It's okay. Maybe share with me after we record, and I can link it up in the show notes for everybody to check out.
Yeah, maybe it could be a follow up.
That sounds good. So let's talk a little bit more about what you're trying to do to instill the faith in your kids, and what you're doing specifically, other than the prayers at night, to really bring them up in the faith, and what that really looks like on a day-to-day basis. Do you have anything to offer there?
I mean, my children are 2 and 4,
Mm-hmm.
so at this age, their understanding naturally is a little bit limited. But even with that, I'm one thing I'm trying to do as a father is I'm trying to explain why we're doing what we're doing. I mean, with my upbringing in the church, we went to church every Sunday, but sometimes it kind of felt like it was almost just rote. This is what we did because that's just the way it is. And one of my goals is to go a little bit beyond that and explain why we're doing what we're doing. What does it mean? What's the significance?
Right. No, that makes sense. I know I was raised Catholic, and my dad was at best a Easter and Christmas Catholic, and I think they call it E&C Catholic. And the same thing about being rote. Even though we went to a Catholic grade school, going to church on Sunday was just something you did, and sometimes we may not even have made it to it. So we often tried to, but it was usually something to just kind of tick the box and check it off for the week. But there was really no focus in engaging there outside of Sunday or Saturday night service at 5:30. I do want to ask you this, James. What are some of the struggles that you face as a man, as a dad, as a husband in trying to deepen your faith as an Orthodox Christian today?
It's a pretty deep question.
Well, just give me the 2-minute version.
I think a lot of it has to do with prioritizing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it has to do really, when you have a long day with work, when you have a long day with kids, trying to make sure that you have time for God and to get beyond just the rote stuff. Like, yes, I bless myself before I eat. And like I said, we do the prayers with the kids, but really trying to find that time in solitude, really, to talk to God and make sure that He is a priority in my life. Because ultimately, without Him, there's nothing. There's no success in business
Right.
or with family or health or anything.
Sure. Absolutely. How do you carve out that time? Is there a time, say, in the morning that maybe I know you're on the road a lot, maybe not right now, but usually you are. Is it something that you do? Maybe you get up early, you get your prayers in, not get them in, but that's your focus time, or maybe when you're driving. What does that look like for you?
Quite frankly, it's whenever I can find the time. I wish I could say I have a set time, but it's just
Sure.
whenever I seem to find it. A lot of times it's in the evening.
Yeah.
It seems like in the evening I have the most time.
Well, I mean, I can appreciate that. I mean, I know I struggle with that myself. I try to really make it a priority in the morning, or at least I've started to earlier this year. But time escapes you. And I think that, dads especially can appreciate that when, especially coming home or coming out of the office at home right now, or stepping in the door, once the kids greet you and the wife kind of hands them off if you stay at home, or, in your case, you're both working parents, it's tough to really carve out that time. So I think it's commendable that you're even, putting forth the effort, because I know a lot of guys struggle with it. And even in some of the Facebook groups that I check out for Orthodox dads and Christian dads as a whole. So James, kind of switching gears a little bit here. One of the goals that I'm trying to do in interviewing dads who are just laymen, everyday fathers just trying to raise their kids in the faith, I like to talk about the struggles in during liturgy, because I think that's a real pain point for a lot of parents. The struggle is real. I know that I've had my own struggles with kids, and I've had my own frustrations. Can you tell us about some of the things that you and Stephenie have done that have, one, worked, and two, haven't worked, and you probably wouldn't try again?
Nothing has really worked. It's it's a constant struggle. Actually, I take that back. One thing I've seen that has worked is when the kids are separate, they
Mm,
tend to be better.
okay,
But the problem is that doesn't really work when we are both there.
sure.
What's interesting is there was a period, especially when Stephenie was pregnant with my second, with Sebastian,
Mm,
and when Sebastian was very young, that she didn't go to church very much, and I would still go almost every Sunday, and I typically would take Zach with me.
mm.
And Zach behaved pretty well, actually. So that was really my only control experiment. When I had him, life was good. But with both kids, it's either terrible or worse.
Yeah, no, I've found this similar thing. Like, when you got to give them something to do. I know with us at St. Mary's, what Father David has encouraged us to do is, you know, bring in some kind of Orthodox related reading material or coloring book. I know the coloring has helped a lot. So at least for my children, guys out there, try the coloring book, or maybe try the man to man approach, woman to woman approach for that James and his wife seem to be trying to implementing here. So just a recommendation. This is something that wasn't on my list of questions, but just something that kind of popped in my head as we're talking here. I know, it's tough for us dads to find times with our wives and just to be alone, to have that intimacy time, just to, maybe pray together, or maybe just, kind of decompress. What are some things that you and Stephenie do to, maybe hand off the kids to grandparents, or hire a babysitter, or anything you guys do to deepen your faith together, one, and then just trying to get away and just find that time to kind of rekindle your love for each other? Can you offer anything for there?
Well, I think everyone's situation is different. My
Sure.
parents live about an hour away, so they don't take the kids too often. But I mean, we try to spend time together once the kids are put to bed. Being that we both work, that's definitely a struggle. I mean, I
Sure.
wish I could say the kids went to bed at a reasonable hour, but they really don't.
I understand.
But I will say, a couple times, my sister has volunteered to watch the kids and let us have a night out. That has been just priceless for us. So
That's
shout out to my sister Catherine for that.
There you go.
But it's tough. I mean, everyone's situation's different, but when you're both working, and we both work hard, we leave everything out there on the field, and then you want to give time to your kids, and you want to include spiritual time. By the
Right.
time they're down for bed, we're both exhausted, and I guess that's just part of
Yeah.
the way things work.
Yeah. I think that's just part of the life we're in right now, because my kids are 4 and 2 as well. So, Anna was talking to me the other day about it, and she was just discussing it with a friend who's a little bit older, and who has older kids, and she's like, "That's just the stage of life you're in." I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, there's a reason you're exhausted. So I don't know if that's encouragement, but at least it offers the fact that you're not alone. So, um, so James, I know it's been a struggle for my family, during COVID, during quarantine, social distancing, not being able to go to church, even especially for something like Pascha. Online services via YouTube or Facebook Live have been a true blessing. How is the Constantine family doing with online services right now?
The online services for my wife and I have been very helpful. It doesn't work for the children. I'll be honest, it just doesn't. I
Yeah.
mean, we tried it at first, and we found very quickly that what ended up happening was a lot of screaming and yelling and a lot of pausing. So a 2-hour service turned into a 3-hour service, which isn't really going to work for anybody. So bits and pieces. If the kids want to come, and sometimes the kids will come up and we'll say, "Hey, if you want to watch, sit quietly."
Right.
But we mostly have been tolerant. If they want to go downstairs and play with their toys, my thought process is, as important as the church is to me, this is temporary,
Right.
and they're young. So when they're older, they're not going to remember the services they didn't watch on television because they were playing with their toys.
Right. No, you're totally right. I actually had Dr. Philip Mamalakis on the podcast. I want to say episode 22, and I'll link that up in the show notes, guys, for you to check out. But he actually relayed the same thing. He's got, his kids are a little bit older. I think he's got, I want to say 7, maybe 8. And they were all at home at the time now too, while they're watching services, because they're, whether in college or whatever, and they all got to be home because they can't be at the dorm. And one of his sons just said to him, was like, "Dad, online, this is boring. I mean, church is boring, but online church is really boring." So he just said he's not expecting them to stand there at attention the whole time or even focus. But when the gospel's being read, at least for the older children, have them stand and just at least listen to the gospel. You can't expect them to be, standing at attention. I mean, it's even hard for Anna and I to do, even ourselves as adults. So I think what you and Stephenie are doing, is the least you can expect from kids. So I commend you there for even having them show up at all. James, is there a piece of scripture or maybe a quote from the church fathers that you've carried with you, I guess, through your years being an Orthodox Christian that you want to share?
I think the one constant for me has been very simple: the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner. Because if I could say one thing to Jesus in my life, that's what it is.
Amen to that. And I can appreciate that. I mean, that's a prayer that I often turn to, if I don't have a book handy or something, or maybe I'm at work or I'm just in a stressful situation. And usually if I just focus on those words, it will calm me down in the moment, hopefully, because anger and anxiety, stress are the kind of things that overwhelm me at times. So it's definitely a go-to for mine. And then obviously we're in good company with, priests and monks and, obviously the church fathers themselves. What about any kind of reading material? Is there anything you're reading from an Orthodox perspective or even just an overall Christian perspective that you found helpful recently?
I've been reading from my Orthodox Study Bible.
Oh,
I've been reading more of the Psalms, but I mean, quite frankly, I probably have not been reading up to the point that I wish I was.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. One of the books that I've actually enjoyed, and I'm actually putting those in part of the episodes here, is the Wisdom of Sirach. I know it's not usually a portion of the Bible that's used or that was even in like the NIV or anything like that, but it's in a style similar to Proverbs, and I think that's why I like it so much, because it's simple, everyday truths that are just kind of just stand the test of time. So, I appreciate that. I think give me 1 second. I got my Orthodox Study Bible right here as well. So,
oh, very good.
James, I got to tell you, this has been excellent, man. I really appreciate you just being vulnerable, being humble with us, and just sharing, just sharing your insights. Is there anything, last piece of advice you want to give the dads before we sign off here?
Not really.
Come on, you got to give me something. Give me 30 seconds of something. Give me some Constantine wisdom here.
I mean, what I would say is it's very challenging, being a father, raising Orthodox Christian children, but it's fulfilling, and I couldn't imagine doing it any other way, because that's really what life is about. I think being an Orthodox Christian father is about really paying attention to what matters, and our faith in Jesus is what matters at the end of the day.
See, you had it in you the whole time. It came together in the end, didn't it? James Constantine, I really appreciate it, man. I know you're new to Zoom. This was excellent. So you can use this as as part of your CV or resume for going forward. If anyone ever asks if you can handle yourself on video, you've done an excellent job, man. I appreciate it.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for having me on.
No problem at all. And we'll see you again next time, guys. Thank you.